have launched Visual Studio Community. I have it on my taskbar down here, and I'm going to choose a console application. The language is C#. And I'm going to click next. For the project name, you guys will put in lesson 3, program 1. I'm going to put in lesson 3 example. Really important that you take note where it's going to put the program. By default, on your C drive, under your username, you'll see a source folder and a repo folder, and that's where it goes by default. And I normally just let it save it where the default is located. And when you create Visual Studio projects, there's a lot of folders that are created, and I always have the solution file placed in the project in the same directory. So it just puts everything in the same spot. Okay, that makes everything easier to find. So make sure that that check is on and then click on next. And I'm going to pause the video while this loads. Now, it is faster to use .NET Fiddle, I will tell you. Oh, okay, it came back already. This is something that, you know, in the profession, developers do use Visual Studio. So in the upper level programming classes, this is what we use. What you're going to want to pick here is .NET 6. That is the current version. Now, in the Code Easy, they tell you to choose .NET 5. You can see that's no longer supported. So I would pick .NET 6 and click Create. Honestly, I haven't noticed a lot of differences between .NET 5 and 6, just to tell you the truth. So now it is actually creating the program file and the folders. And I'm going to pause a minute here. So eventually, the project is created in Visual Studio, and sometimes it takes a while. And so you'll notice that there is a program file, program CS. That is what you see by default here. It is not giving us all of the, quite all of the code that the .fiddle does. So I'm going to go ahead and just start from scratch here. Okay, so I'm going to start with my using statement, because I know that I'm going to be using the console.writeLine, and console is a class in the system namespace. And so this example is similar to what you have to do. It's not identical because obviously I don't want to give you the answer, but it is very similar. So you're going to have to create a namespace and give it a name, which is exactly what I have done. Obviously, yours is going to be a little bit different. Your namespace is going to be called golf. And then for the class, you are going to give the class a name of my scores, and I'm going to give my example a name of my low score. So it's very similar to what you're going to do. And then inside my I'm going to put the curlies in here. One thing that people forget is these curly braces. That should go after. And let me put the curly in here. And so if you put those in right away, you are less likely to forget them. So that would be my helpful hint of the day. Let's see. Now we need to do public. Put the little curlies in. All right, so now we got our little structure. So when you do this, your namespace is going to be called golf. Your class is going to be my scores, and your main is going to look similar. And you have to create 2 integer variables for your program. And in my example, I'm going to create 3. And I'm using camel casing. And you can pick the value you want to set these to, but it should be something between 50 and 100. Oops. Helps if you don't mistype things. All right, so I've got my variables. Right now, you'll notice Visual Studio is flagging them because I haven't used them. And so if you point over this, that's all it's telling you is that, yeah, you got a variable here, but you're not using it, which is kind of a waste of resources. So I am going to use them now. Let's see, I'll do high score, less than score. If that is true, I'm going to write better luck next time. And let's see. So if it's not true, I do want to check to see if the score is less than the low score. So I'm going to do a little nested if else, and you don't need to do a nested one. You just need to do a regular one, which I will show you what that looks like in a minute. Now, in this instance, I put in the curly braces because I want it to do more than one thing. Okay, so in the if above here, there's no curly brace because I just have one thing that it's doing. But here, I want the low score to be set to the current score because the current score is less than the low score. So we will make that the new low score. And now I'm going to do counsel right line. A little of that string interpolation. And we'll print out their new low score. And after the closing curly, I'll put an else. So if the score is not bigger than the high score and it's not lower than the low score, that kind of puts it right in the middle. So we'll just do a console.writeLine. We had average day. And so let me save this. And I can run this. And in Visual Studio, when you run something, it does a build, which basically compiles it. And it will show you errors, but in both .NET Fiddle and Visual Studio, it does flag those errors. I mean, if you see like a curly line under something, there you got a problem that you're going to need to fix. So once it is done with the build, it will open up this little console, and you should see the code output here. So when it runs, and sometimes it takes a while, you should see the message, and it should kind of make sense. With 30, it wouldn't have gone through here or here. It would have gone through, well, actually, it would have gone through here, my new low score. Okay, so let me change this to 50. And let's run it. Let me close that. This is running a bit faster than the first time. Okay, so that worked. And then let me do something that's going to test that top one. So for you to turn this in, what you're going to need to do is do a screenshot of the code and also of the program running. These are small enough that you should be able, to do them side by side or one below the other. And the snipping tool is usually what I use. So this is part of Windows. You can just do a little search on it and key in the word snip, and then you'll see snipping tool and you can launch it. And you hit new. It kind of dims out your screen, and then you just drag over the portion that you want to save as a graphic. And then you hit save. And it'll save it in a graphic format. You just have to kind of pick your location. And I would name it the same as the program. So you guys are doing lesson 3, program 1. So that's what you should key in here and hit save. And then you'll be able to upload it to the Dropbox. Now, I did mention that this is a little more complicated than what you need to do, because you do not need to do a nested if else. So really all you guys need is something very, very simple, where you're checking the score against the average, and you display one thing if it's true, and then you just display something else if it's false. So yours is going to look a little bit simpler. It's going to be more like this.